Ray Comfort claims to have fallen in love with Jesus back in the early 70s in his native New Zealand. And like anyone who finds love, Ray was eager to spread the good news. Strangely, he chose not to remain in his own country, where the number of people declaring a belief in the Christian God was plummeting, and continues to do so to this day. No, instead of fighting back the tide of rampant secularism enveloping the land of his birth, Ray travelled across the Pacific to the most devoutly religious developed country in the world, where there was no noticeable slide in religious belief underway, no apparent rise of atheism, and therefore no apparent requirement for a new evangelical preacher to stem the tide of secularism. So why did Ray Comfort ignore the desperate need of the New Zealand flock, who were fast turning away from the Bible to take the secular path, and instead move to the US, where a majority of the population was staunch and firm believers and more than willing to hand over their hard-earned cash to anyone with a smooth charm who told them what they wanted to hear? Yes, Ray Comfort stumbled on the easiest way to make money that there is. In this video, I'm going to discuss disgust. This is not a topic you should turn your nose up at, because it has wide implications for the skeptically minded individual, and especially those considering the questions of morality, sin, and guilt. If you do not immediately see a connection between disgust, morality, sin, guilt, and Ray Comfort, I will come to all that. Disgust is an emotional response which is to an extent hardwired into our brains. It's hardwired for a reason. It's a survival reflex. At the very basic level, it tells us what things we should avoid eating. On a grander level, it assists us in avoiding all behaviours which might be harmful to us as an individual or to our family or wider social group. Rats, cats, dogs, and even baby rabbits will express disgust when presented with bitter-tasting food. Humans can recognise disgust when expressed by another person. Mirror neurons in the brain will fire when you are presented with an image of another person whose face is clearly showing disgust. Which makes complete sense. If you and Eve are walking in some strange woods and she picks a ripe, scrumptious-looking fruit, pops it in her mouth, and immediately pulls a face like a world champion gurner, you are likely to pause before reaching for the fruit yourself. And if later Eve croaks due to her impulsiveness, you will know that you have survived because your mirror neurons fired, allowing you to share her feeling of disgust without the need to share her poison fruit. So how do we feel disgust? The insular cortex in the mammalian brain is what lights up like a Christmas tree when a mammal experiences disgust. I hope to go into that in much more detail, but for now enough to know that modern scanning techniques give neuroscientists a fairly good idea of which parts of the brain are activated when various stimuli are received. Of course, it is not only the idea of us eating live cockroaches, curdled milk, or sucking on a marathon runner's sock which disgusts us. We are also disgusted by things which offend our moral sensibilities. These might include deviant sexual practices, corrupt politicians, or Justin Bieber. It is no accident when we say that someone's behaviour disgusts us. When our moral sensibilities are pricked, it is precisely the same regions of our brain which light up as when we are repelled by disease or putrefaction. The same region that lights up when we feel guilt, which is in fact disgust with ourselves. Feeling sick to your stomach about someone's behaviour really only makes sense when you understand that their moral effrontery has triggered the same physical responses in your body as finding half a dead mouse hanging out of the Big Mac you've just taken a bite from. We also all recognise, I hope, that disgust is at least in part a learned behaviour. Young children have no problem sitting in their own filth all day and will, left unattended, stick just about anything into their mouths. Only gradually do they develop their full sense of disgust. Moral indignation, which piggybacks onto the more primitive disgust, is very much a learned emotion. Behaviour such as infanticide, slavery and cannibalism, considered completely normal for the ancient Greeks, pre-colonial aborigines around the world, and of course the tribes of the Old Testament, are now considered abominable by most of us. And we are quick to judge other societies based on our own subjective morality, just as they in turn judge us. We learn guilt just as we learn our morality. And morality can be unlearned, just as disgust can. If you've ever asked yourself how a nurse can clean up after incontinent patients all day, A decent human being can slaughter animals for a living. A dentist can earn their living staring at rotting teeth, or how Bill O'Reilly procreated. Then you know that tolerance to that which we find disgusting can be learned. Ray Comfort plays on this fact. Unwittingly, I'm sure, as I doubt Ray spends much time trying to learn anything new. Ray knows how to manipulate people's emotions. Equate abortions to the Jewish Holocaust, conveniently forgetting that his supposed God twiddled his thumb as millions were put to death by the Nazis, twiddled his thumbs for 2,000 years as the Christian church grew, continually and consistently scapegoating, persecuting and murdering millions of more Jews. Ray makes the equation because he wants a visceral response. This is the same reason that he uses a cartoon child in his message. He does not want his herd to know that 1/3 of abortions are carried out in the first 6 weeks of pregnancy, that 9 out of 10 are carried out in the first 12 weeks, and of course this life begins at conception preacher certainly does not want his herd to know that perhaps 2/3 of all conceptions fail to progress to a point where the woman even knows that she is pregnant. Presumably his God has plans for those other 8 million conceptions which take place in the USA each year. But facts and figures like these would not put across the message Ray wants out there. They would not push the sales of his 180 movie, and they would not keep the money flowing into his family business. Ray knows that morality is something that is learned and can be manipulated. His selective representations, sensational headlines, and fraudulent video editing proves this. Do you find it simply odd that someone who exploits moral subjectivity to his own financial ends should do so whilst preaching moral absolutism? Or do you, like me, find it disgusting? Thank you, as always, for watching.